Now let's talk college football playoffs. Let's go to the Rose Bowl. Let's talk about Alabama. Let's talk about Michigan. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Finally here. So I don't love to giving the college football playoffs like the spotlight that it deserves a spotlight. I don't love giving it, when there's other things going on. But now we're here. So now we can spotlight it,
Hmm.
right? It is a game. It's a matchup against, you know, what's crazy is that in this game, Michigan is for some reason the villain, which
Yeah.
is why these
With
are both villains.
first time, by the way, Saban and Bama, they're kind of in new territory. Like how is he gonna motivate this team? Now, obviously, the point spread, you can look at that. Very easy to motivate your team by being underdogs in this game. But you mentioned Michigan, a team very heavily scrutinized, very big spotlight put on that program with all the extracurricular activities involved with the scandals and spying and all that other stuff. And obviously, not to mention Jim Harbaugh's a guy that is historically just very polarizing himself.
Yeah, and things like people will say like there are probably people in the comments like, well, Bama's a villain too in this scenario. They booted out Florida State. I'm like, they didn't do anything, dude. They didn't do anything. The college football playoff committee is the ones that are the villains in that scenario, right?
Yeah.
Bama is not the villain here. All right, sure they lost to Texas, but they won out and then also beat the number one team in the country in the SEC championship. And they have a player that basically played himself after getting benched in week 3, played himself into the conversation for being what, sixth in the Heisman Trophy voting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just I'm all over that. I in this scenario think that Michigan's a good team. They're very good. And I've always said it. I've said it since the beginning of the season that they have so many guys in that offensive line that they trust starters, backups, whatever. I do think that it might catch up to them a little bit. This is a different front seven than they've. I mean, I'm not gonna say a different front seven because they've played some really good front sevens. I'm gonna say this is a different secondary. It's a really good front seven paired with you have 3 All-Americans in that secondary.
They're so good.
Three
And they're
All-Americans.
deep too. Key and turn and all those guys back there. Some of those Sun Belt transfers are just so good.
So I mean,
Amos.
yeah, and I think Jalen Monroe will just like Michigan also has a pretty decent secondary as well. Like if Will Johnson can start locking down on Jermaine Burton, I still think that Jalen Monroe can just make enough plays with his legs. I think Royce Williams, I think he's the better running back of the many running backs that Bama has in that backfield. I think he's better than Jam Miller. I think he's better than uh, Jason McClellan. I like Alabama in the spot. I I took him at +2.5 when he was out because I thought that this line would actually cross 0. It is not, but it has moved down to 1.5, one in a lot of places. I'll go ahead and take Bama on this spot. I know Michigan was my preseason national championship pick, but I'm gonna go ahead and take Bama on the spot. I think that they're clicking at the right time, and I think they're more talented than this Michigan team.
Yeah, it took them a while. You mentioned clicking at the right time. Michigan, a team that kind of, I wouldn't say limped to the finish line, but they were a team that was hot early and they were smoking everybody they played against, looking fantastic, lighting up stat sheets, et cetera, et cetera. And then they kind of limped down the field with, they struggled. I wouldn't say struggled, but they kind of just took their time with beating Penn State. And then Maryland obviously was a close game. And then Ohio State, don't fault them for that at all. But they just like, and namely, I think a lot of the criticism has gone towards that passing game and JJ McCarthy. And the thing is with Alabama is you're going to have an elite quarterback play against Alabama. You're going to have to beat him with his legs and with his arm in tight coverages, tight windows, under pressure. Is McCarthy up to that? Is he up to the task? I have no idea. I've seen it at times last year against Ohio State, very impressed. I've seen it in spots this year, certain drives or series where he has to get points or he has to make big time throws against Ohio State. He did. Other times though, they, it scares me because do they trust him? Right? Like we talked about. I hear what you're telling me, but I also see what you do. Right? I hear all the talk. JJ McCarthy this, JJ McCarthy that. He's improved his footwork. He's got a great arm. And I see that all. Right? I love it. But it's also like that Sharon Moore and that offense coordinator staff, right? They just ran the ball at will in these big time games when they needed it most. And does that tell you what they think about McCarthy, or does that tell you what they're going to do what it takes to win, no matter what it is? And I think it's a little bit of both, right? I don't think McCarthy is this fully polished guy, elite level quarterback play. I don't even know if he's the best quarterback in this football game. I think Monroe has. I've just been super impressed with what he's done, not only like developing as a passer, but using his legs to his advantage and not pretending to be a pocket passer when he can actually use his legs to his advantage. I don't know, man. There's so much to break down in this game. This is just awesome matchup. Coaching staffs, style of play, brands, old school, new school, all that other good stuff. The SEC Big Ten, they're out in the West Coast there in an iconic Pasadena Stadium in the Rose Bowl. It is such a treat there. I just want to urge you guys to just soak it in right on January 1st. This is going to be an incredible game. I think a 4-quarter battle, 1.5 point spread. This is exactly what everyone dreams about when they play college football. Like it's this kind of game with these two teams and all the NFL talents there. I don't know. With that being said, I just have a weird feeling. And I took Bama, honestly, they were pretty much my national championship pick when we were talking about the SEC. I'm gonna do what you did. I'm gonna switch here. I'm gonna go Michigan. I think this is
Wow, the switcher. So your preseason pick and my preseason pick are playing right now, and we're both flipping sides.
yeah, and I think I don't know, man. If you told me Bama was in the playoffs, I think everything clicked and they got it right eventually with the old line, and I'd be like, oh, Bama by easily, right? But I think Michigan's a team of destiny right now. And I just think what they've done and all the negative noise and whatnot, and coming back after 2 straight years of getting embarrassed in the college football playoffs, they're ready for this moment. They're going to get a win. Jim Harbaugh needs this. He wants this before he does whatever he does with the rest of his career. I think they can run the football. I think they can move the ball. I think they can get after Milroe and really give havoc to the no line that dominated the Georgia front. But to be honest, was not all super impressed with Georgia's front this year. I think Michigan had a better front than them, and I think that'll show in this game. It's
I think
going to be
Texas has a
awesome.
better front.
When
than
you saw that in week 2, but obviously much different O line, much different Milroe and passing attack, thanks in large part to Tommy Reese, um, with Alabama there and their growth and development throughout the year. But yeah, I just think Roman Wilson makes some big time plays. There's gonna Donovan Edwards. We didn't even talk about the running backs here with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Blake Corum just doesn't look the same. Like it's a tough injury to come back for. I get it. Very happy for him. Very successful guy. Still runs super hard. Still very hard to bring down. Does not have that fourth gear, sixth gear that he used to have to break away from teams and players. I think Edwards has that. I think Donovan Edwards is that guy where he can turn a corner and bust a long run against a very good front and secondary defense in general for Alabama. Very physical. What Kevin Steele's done for them all year and developing them after a rough start to the year with Texas and then getting there, playing better against Ole Miss, struggling against LSU a little bit, but who hasn't, and then really buckling down against a very good Georgia team offensively. So yeah, what else you got for this game?
Well, I look at this and I also think about if you're the vibe check, right? We talk about the vibe check here. They're in their they're in their meeting room. College football playoffs rankings are being announced.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you look at the faces of some of those players on Michigan when they saw that they drew Bama instead of Florida State. There was not a lot of excitement. Now it could have been the Bama, the Saban, the hey, been there, done that. That's what they do. That's Bama's thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it just looked like that Michigan, they seemed a little bit, it's almost like they'd lost before they've even played the game. Now, that can be dangerous because, you know, sometimes maybe it was a Bama thing. Maybe Jim Harbaugh was like, "Hey, we're gonna respectfully clap for whatever name pops up on their screen, and we're gonna go take care of our business," which I could definitely see happening as well. But I'll uh I'll say Bama passes the vibe check for me.
For sure. Well, this is all business for them. But I do think that same thing we said with Michigan. I did see a quote from one of their defensive leaders from Michigan that said, hey, listen, it was more of a shock that Florida State didn't get in over Bama. It wasn't that we wanted to play Florida State. It was that we were just kind of surprised with the committee and their
Right,
choice. Obviously,
right.
that's what you're going to say. Not much say it. But obviously, you ask any Michigan player, any Michigan fan, they're going to want to play Florida State over Alabama and that's not really a question. I don't think that's a surprise considering Florida State's almost 20-point dogs to a team that Bama just beat. Yeah, I don't know. This is an awesome game though. This is a very awesome game. Key player of the game right here, I'm gonna call right now, Colston Loveland, tight end from Michigan. I think he really makes some plays for them down the stretch on third down. When they need to play, he gets it for him, and McCarthy finds him. and they do some big things there in the red zone, and then also obviously on third down.
Yeah, I'll say they have Malachi Moore playing in the slot.
Yeah.
I think that's Bama's key player. I think he has to play well for Bama to win.
Dude, but he's a little small though. That's what worries me. He's not Brian Branch. Brian Branch 6'2".
I
Legit
know, but
6'2".
I'm saying he's got to play well for
Yeah.
Bama to win this
Well,
game.
and he comes down in the run support just so well. Malachi Moore does everything for them. He rotates back, plays top free safety. He plays strong safety, nickel. He'll play a little bit outside as well. It's a really very flexible defense they got back there. Even with the young guy Caleb Downs and Terry Arnold, who's a first year starter as well. It's a special defense there in the secondary.